here we are again.
Yeah. You remember our learning machine over there?
What's it going to teach us today, Mr. Money?
I'll turn it on and you'll see.
When they gave people $1,000 a month over the course of 3 years, $36,000 in all, on average, recipients of this money had $3,000 less total wealth than recipients who didn't get this money. And I need to point out here, they didn't even increase the time they spent with their kids. Like, to me, like, that's the cruel twist of the blade of how fundamentally selfish the average human is.
Yeah, I don't like people.
Oh, well, now that's not fair, Roy. Have you met all of them?
I've met enough of them. People. What a bunch of bastards.
People are like, I can't afford to spend time with my kids. And we have proof now that even if you had more money, you wouldn't spend more time with your kids. When people are like, if I had more money or if I had inherited money or blah, 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 like I would be living a different life. Like, that's functionally untrue. You would actually maybe be living a materially worse life. It now means if reparations were to be paid as a form of UBI to the Black community, it would permanently monetarily sabotage the community.
If you're just joining us, Black people got their reparations checks today, and in short, all hell is broken loose.
So how did you become the world's wealthiest man, Tron?
Hot hand in a dice game, baby girl.
Well, I think what everyone wants to know now is, what are you going to do with all this money?
I'm going to reinvest my money into the community.
Oh, that's a very nice gesture. What were you...
Side!
Okay. Is that your son?
No, I just bought this baby cash.
Now, here's where it gets dystopian. At the top of the page, it's just one line for the results of the study. Cash increases possibilities.
For I knew that even though some of you supported us, some others were looking at me and thinking, "You're a liar! You're a liar! You know something that you're not telling us, you slimy scumbag liar!" You know, that's what people would say to me.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. I am excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be discussing something that changes my view on economics, the media, and what might be the most optimal economic system. And specifically, this is a large experiment that was run by Sam Altman of OpenAI to see if UBI would work. UBI means universal basic income. It is the idea that it might make sense to just do cash handouts across the population. Like, say, everybody gets $1,000 every month. And that this might be a lighter weight way to do welfare, and it might have some moral or even economic justification. Well, I am going to briefly describe the findings from this study that I thought were most relevant. Then I'm going to go over the way the news reported the study's findings and the way his organization, OpenAI, reported the study's findings. So the information that I thought was an important takeaway is that when they gave people $1,000 a month over the course of 3 years, $36,000 in all, on average, recipients of this money had $3,000 less total wealth than recipients who didn't get this money.
Wait, hold on. I just want to make sure I have this right. They were poorer. The people who got extra money, but were not told to change anything else about their lives, had less money than before this experiment if they received the, $1,000 a month payments?
Yes, so $36,000 in total. No, keep in mind, this means somehow, when contrasted with the other people, they lost $39,000. Because it's not just the $3,000 less to their wealth. You also have to consider all the money that was given to them that at the start of the experiment, should have made them higher wealth. They managed to lose. So they managed to lose a considerable sum of money.
Oh, I didn't think about it that way. It was like, okay, well, if you started out with $50,000 and then you ended with a little less than that, it's fine.
It's worse. So for every dollar received by the programs, participants' earnings, excluding the cash transfer, decreased by at least 12 cents.
Oh, so they were working less?
We'll get to all that. I'm just giving you the things I thought were most relevant.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Total household income fell by at least 13 cents per dollar received. So, to your first question, recipients of UBI reduced their work by 4 to 5%. These reductions translated to 2.2 fewer hours per week, 114 fewer hours annually. Recipients mostly spent this time on more leisure activities and not pursuing education, higher quality jobs, or spending time or caring for family members. The authors noted, quote, interestingly, we do not observe those with children spending more or less time with children as a result of the transfers. Moreover, households without children reduce their work by more than households with children. So when people are like, oh, if I had more money, I'd spend more time with my kid, it's like statistically, that's wrong. And I should note here that they actually kind of tried to go to participants. Like they would ask them every time they meet, like, how much time are you spending on additional education? How much time are you spending on additional training? How much time are you spending on...
So you could even argue that they kind of messed with the results by priming people to do the responsible thing.
And they did not.
They still didn't even...
No evidence of this. Now, here's where it gets dystopian.
Okay.
On OpenAI's website, the top of the page where they, on OpenAI research, it's just one line for the results of the study. Cash increases possibilities.
For I knew that even though some of you supported us, some others were looking at me and thinking, you're a liar! You're a liar! You know something that you're not telling us, you slimy scumbag liar! You know, that's what people would say to me.
Let's keep going. So here we have a write-up on this by the Register. And I will read it because it is actually kind of chilling. So they wrote, as the title of this, Sam Altman's basic income experiment finds that money can indeed buy happiness.
I mean, it's not wrong because people spent more time Netflixing and chilling.
I guess.
Yeah.
The results of the largest universal basic income trial program in the United States, the one backed by billionaire Sam Altman, no less, are in and entirely uninspiring. After 3 years of giving $1,000 to low-income individuals, $1,000 a month of no-strings-attached cash, a group of researchers at Altman's Open Research determined that recipients mostly spent the cash on life necessities, got a bit choosier in their employment, and made more use of medical care. Perhaps most critically, it gave participants an increased sense of agency, making them more likely to start their own business, take the opportunity to work a lower-paying job for more independence, budget their finances to plan for the future, and improve their prospects through further education. Thanks for reminding us of what we already know, Sam. UBI makes overworked poor people less miserable, underlined.
And then people would see my wife in the supermarket and they would say hello, but they'd be thinking, ah, there goes that murderer! You got away with murder, you murdering, lying waste of life!
I want to get this straight. So they said that the research gave people those opportunities, but didn't ultimately make those things happen,
No,
right?
It gave them the opportunity to take lower paying jobs.
But it also gave them the opportunity to invest in education. It didn't say that they did invest in education. Mm-hmm. It didn't say caused them.
They factually didn't, by the way. It gave them the opportunity to. It's just they chose.
I know. Well, but what I'm saying is this article was not misleading per se. But it was factual, but more an opinion piece than.
No. Hold on. They get to the meat and potatoes so that you know that they're giving you both sides of the argument. Later in the article, it says, it's not all sunshine and roses in UBI land, though the Y Combinator's studies results published on July 21st, 2024 are generally positive and show the benefits of no strings attached cash payment. Not everything was a net positive. Take, for example, the fact that recipients were more likely to visit the hospital, see a specialist, go to the dentist, and cut down on excess alcohol and drug use. Those are all great results, except they didn't lead to a net improvement in participant health. Quote, on average, we do not find direct evidence of greater access to healthcare or improvements in physical or mental health, end quote. The researchers say in the report, for many participants, quote, the additional $1,000 per month alone may not be sufficient to overcome the larger systemic barriers to healthcare access and reduce health disparities, end quote. In other words, UBI is just one piece of the puzzle that is lifting the conditions of the poorest Americans.
And to me, people might say things like, "Liar! Tell us what you know, you goddamn liar!"
Not enough socialism. Not enough socialism.
To think that you could write an entire article and not mention that they were poorer at the end, that they were making less money, that they were earning less, that their incomes were now less.
Malcolm, stop. You're thinking too much. Quiet,
quiet.
Wealth,
they were in a worse position overall because now they're lower income. They were not spending more time with their kids. They were not spending more time on self-improvement.
They had the opportunity, Malcolm. Damn it. Can't you just be a good
People. What a bunch of bastards.
I actually wanted to talk more about this not spending a lot of time with their kids thing, because I've been thinking about this in my own life, and I realized that the amount of time I spend with my kids is not at all a function of financial security, but a function of just commitment, like what I expect from myself as a parent. In fact, recently I started deciding that every single weekend day I would make a day to do something special with the kids. Either take them to a park, like for example, yesterday I took them on a long walk through the woods, a hike up and down a mountain in Valley Forge.
Oh, no, we're tired.
Torsten, what did you say? Are we almost to the top?
Yeah, I said that's the top.
It's no time to give up, you said?
Yeah.
And that was just a commitment. Like every weekend day, I'm going to spend as much as I can with my kids. And I think that my financial situation didn't change. It was just a change in commitment. And I think for a lot of this stuff, it's just what's your commitment to an individual thing? And then when somebody challenges you and they're like, why aren't you doing this? Because you don't want the cognitive dissonance of, oh gosh, I could be a better parent. You say, well, it's because I don't have enough money. But it's not because you don't have enough money. It's because you haven't decided to do it. This is in the Register, a mainstream newspaper. So let's go to another mainstream newspaper. This time we're going to go to USA Today. Okay? So how did USA Today report on this? The title, how much is $1,000 a month worth? Question mark. New study explores impact of basic income. Quote, we're all finding the same results, end quote, said Stacy West, co-founder and director of the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Guaranteed Income Research. Quote, you give people cash and they make great decisions for themselves and their family in a way that you know can promote upwards economic mobility, end quote.
You know goddamn well what happened, so stop acting like victims and confess! Confess! Liar! Confess!
So this person works for the University of Pennsylvania. That's an Ivy League university. That's Penn.
It's still a progressive university.
But she's just lying. I
just said it was a progressive university. What more do you need to hear? Since when did progressive universities pursue truth?
Understand now how corrupt even the Ivy Leagues are now, that they will just
even the Ivy. What are you talking about? They've been the forefront of corruption from the woke mind virus.
People still believe that there is some degree of credibility within the hollowed institutions. You may have had the wool lifted from your eyes, but I am sure some of our listeners are at least slightly aghast that she would lie to a reporter about something this easy to fact check. And that the reporter would then publish all of this uncritically. But let's read more of this article that they wrote. Overall, researchers said their findings suggest cash, quote, provides flexibility, end quote. Quote, the data we collected highlights the complexity of people's lives and needs, end quote, reads a statement from Open Research shared with USA Today. Quote, cash provides the flexibility to meet those diverse needs, and it is responsive when needs shift based on a person's circumstances, end quote. According to the study, here, so now they're going over all of the important takeaways that we should take from the study, okay? Note they are not going to, note what they're not mentioning. Recipients increased their spending by $310 a month on average, primarily using their money for essentials like food, housing, and transportation. Not really true, though. The money was also used as a financial support for others, with recipients spending an average of $22 more a month on things like gifts for friends and family, loans, donations, charity, and alimony payments. Recipients worked 1.3 hours less a week on average compared with the control group and reported more leisure time, but remained engaged in the workforce. Recipients were 26% more likely to visit a hospital in the last year of the study and 10% more likely to get dental care and visit an emergency room. They also reported a decrease in problematic alcohol and some types of illicit drug use. Now, here I would note, by the way, in case you don't remember, the other paper accidentally admitted the fact that's one of the ones this paper is covering up, that their health didn't increase. So yeah, they might have had a marginal increase in dentist visits, but it didn't change anything. Recipients were 4.4 percentage points more likely to move neighborhoods. Open Research plans to look into how the cash transfers affect housing stability and neighborhood quality in future analyses. Recipients, especially Black and female recipients, were more likely to report having an idea for a business. Recipients also reported a greater likelihood of starting a business within the next 5 years.
She's making jewelry now. She's got her own website.
Your sister like going to massage school?
But she's making jewelry now.
And it's just like we're so happy because she's not floundering around anymore.
Yeah? And what's she doing again?
She's making jewelry now. She's got her life on track.
And then it says, but the concept has received pushback. More than half of US adults oppose a universal basic income of about $1,000 a month for adults when surveyed by Pew Research Center in 2020. And the greatest opposition was among white adults.
Whoa, spooky.
How's it hanging? And I'm gonna scare the hell out of you. Any questions?
A number of states, including Iowa and South Dakota, have passed bills that prohibit counties or cities from providing guaranteed income, as skeptics argued that the money would discourage people from working. And it's like, well, I mean, it did. We know that now. Why didn't you you did report that they worked less, but you didn't report that they're also making less now and have less now.
I don't know what your plan is, but I'm gonna stop it. I am infecting this city with genetically enhanced vermin, but you'll never know. You just told me. You're lying!
So, Simone, why do you think you can understand why all of the newspapers are lying about UBI not working and covering it up? Why do you think OpenAI would be motivated to lie about UBI working?
That one seems pretty straightforward, that a lot of people are afraid that AI is going to take their jobs. And if AI does take their jobs, then they're going to get real angry at OpenAI. They're going to get their senators and their representatives to make legislation that kills OpenAI. And if that happens, there will be no more OpenAI. And OpenAI wouldn't like that. So that's what I'm thinking.
So I'm glad that you immediately see through this. Sam Altman always hears, what if AI takes all our jobs? And so he's like, well, if I can show that UBI works at a broad level, then I can say, well, it's not my fault. It's the government's. It needs to be issuing UBI. Look, I showed it worked. And for people who don't know, this is by far like the largest, most rigorous study on this done in the developed world. There were some studies that showed it was beneficial in developing countries. But like in those instances, people were losing it to like change thatched roofs to metal roofs. And it's like, yeah, obviously, but it turns out people in the developed world who don't have a lot of money, the average income of individuals in this study was $29,000. I'm going to say something so sinful. It turns out they're in that position because they have chosen not to improve their lives. And when given the flexibility to make choices to improve their lives, they don't make those choices.
Actually, can I weigh in here? So I've been thinking, as you're talking about the results of this research, of Caleb Hammer's YouTube channel, Financial Audit, where he has people come on and he goes through all of their spending and everything.
Well, dude, you're blowing all your money when you don't have money. You can't take care of your own life. You start your checking accounts with nothing. You refuse to get a job that will accept you, like the Whataburger job that did accept you, and then you decided not to do it.
Well, I
because
had a reason. I mean, in my head, I had
but you could have gone back and got it. They're always hiring.
Maybe.
And there are so many patterns that I feel would probably show up in participants of this study as well. There are many people who've come on who've received inheritance. They've received $60,000. They've gotten a divorce and they sold a house and made $200,000. And when people receive cash windfalls and they're not financially literate, which is the lion's share of the people who come on Caleb Hammer's show, they blow through it all and often then some. They go into further debt. And I think what happened
and this has been shown in statistics.
Yeah, I think what happened here is a relatively small percentage of uniquely predisposed to laziness, financially illiterate people saw that they were going to receive $1,000 per month. And we're kind of like, oh, great. Like my expenses are taken care of. I'm going to quit my job. Like my expenses are relatively low anyway. I'm going to go out to eat every night. Like, they're like, oh, well, things go to food and transportation. So they're going to get like a lease on a new car. They're going to do a lot of things that they're going to increase their spending in a more unsustainable way. Like I'm going to get sushi every day. And this small number of people who just totally quit their jobs, which are probably part-time to begin with, and just decided they were basically going to live off this $1,000, threw off.
People didn't decrease the percent employed didn't decrease.
But their hours work did.
Yeah, their hours work did.
So I said these people who are probably working part-time anyway are probably decreasing
I'm
the
going
number
to
of
push
hours.
back really strongly.
You think so?
In your mind, you hear $20,000 and you hear low income individual when $29,000 is around the mean income in the United States. Median income. Hold on, I'm going to look up right now. But
I thought it was more around $60,000 for household, which is much higher than what you're saying.
No, it's 37.5.
Is the median?
It's the median. So this is around the median income in the United States. This is not like unique idiot like whatevers. But I'm going to go further because I want to explain how the study works. I want this to be a good summary of like everything on the study, all of the important findings and how it's structured. So over the course of the study, as I've mentioned, treatment group 1 was given $1,000 per month. The control group was given $50 per month, and this was to keep them coming back. There was 1,000 participants in the treatment group, and there was 2,000 participants in the control group, which is enough to be very statistically significant in a study like this. Payments were unconditional with no strings attached. Participants retained all existing benefits. Data collection. The study collected both quantitative and qualitative data. Specifically, they did lots and lots of surveys because, again, it's an expensive study to run, so they want to capture everything, and bank transactions. And they also did interviews with participants. And there's going to be multiple extra studies come out about this going forwards, but I'm sure they're going to be more massaged going forwards now that the cat's sort of out of the bag with this one. And I'm sure Sam, the person funding this, was not happy about this. Especially given that he just had everyone lie about this when he could have like owned and been like, okay, well, now we need to come up with something other than UBI, which he didn't do. He's like, we're still going the UBI path. So I expect massaged results going forwards. So there was a benefit to food scarcity, but this was short-lived and it disappeared over time. By the end of the program, UBI participants reported no better ability to meet their food needs than the control group. The people and this was really fascinating to me, the people in the treatment group who were getting the UBI, they significantly increased disability reporting. So by 4 percentage points. So once you started to get some handouts, it seems like you normalized to this way of life and began to look for additional ways to get handouts, which is not great. No significant health improvements, quote, and this is from the study, no improvement in measures of participants' self-reported access to healthcare or their concerns about their ability to pay for needed medical care, end quote. And their debt increased. So if you were on UBI, while the amount of money you reported spending on saving money increased, your actual functional debt at the end of this was higher. And so employment effects, there was a 2% decrease in labor market participation. This recorded in 8 fewer weekdays annually. Next, other negative effects. There were minimal changes in credit availability, bankruptcy rates, and foreclosures. Now let's talk about the positive outcomes. Increased spending on essential needs like food, houseboards, and transportation. I mean, but those aren't really essential needs is the thing. If they're not increasing your productivity, then they're not essential needs. They're a form of luxury. If I go to live in a mansion, is that an essential need?
How much debt did you go into in those 3 months?
Those 3 months, I would say 15,000.
You lean. That's not lean.
It was my rent.
It's not lean, though.
My rent for a month is 3,500.
It's not overly expensive, but it's not lean.
My rent was 3,500.
Yeah, that's not lean.
Because that's the place I was gonna live in.
I don't care. Live in a cheaper place.
But then I would have to move again.
Oh, cry. What?
So the problem was I was supposed to start working
I'm trying to justify all this. No,
Okay,
I'm not. No, we're not.
Well, this shows up again all the time in financial audit when Caleb asks, like, well, what's this and what's this? So many things that are food are really not food, and people are spending ridiculous amounts eating out, and they're going to classify. I'm sure all restaurant visits in this
are classified as food. Oh, I bet.
And if someone gets a new car, a new lease, like chooses to do something irresponsible with transportation, again. And Caleb gives his guests so much shit for eating out, even just going into a gas station and getting a snack. He gives them shit for that. He gives them like anything, like he considers irresponsible, but people do it so much, especially if they feel like they have money to spare. And the same with transportation. Like there's people who will just take Ubers everywhere, or like, and like, us, like even when there's an emergency, we're like, I don't know, maybe I can walk it,
Well, no, and I was just thinking about us and eating out. So Simone basically never eats out. You may eat out 3 times a year, maybe. I am a little bit more like I admit that I have less austerity than Simone. And
like even when we go traveling, I'm going to a grocery store and buying food.
Yes, but when I eat out, I always, and it's probably less than once a week, I always ensure that I can make at least 2 full days worth of food out of it. By that, what I mean is I typically only eat 1 meal a day. And when I eat out, I'll make that my 1 meal for the day. And then I save half of it. And then I cook it the next day for my second 1 meal of the day. And Simone, you're not like, I'm 100% about this. And when a restaurant lowers its portion size, I get really angry because
we've stopped we have this favorite restaurant in our area that it decreased its portion size, and we're just like, that sucks. We never get to go there again.
Yeah, I can't make 2 meals.
Can't stretch it into 2 meals. Yeah.
So I do want to highlight that that's probably what they're catching here is really just leisure spending. They did, as mentioned by other things, give away more money, $22 per month. Okay. They got $1,000 and they gave away 22. So generous. They had improved food security in the first year, but only in the first year. They had marginal increased use of dental care, as somebody else mentioned, more autonomy in decision-making and job searching, whatever that means. By the way, for people wondering where this happened, it was Texas and Illinois across urban, suburban, and rural areas. The age range was 21 to 40 years old. Income qualification, household income below 300% of the federal poverty threshold, approximately 77.25. Okay, so you could get into the study if you had up to $77,000 in family income for a family of 4, or 37.5 for an individual, average household individual. So what are your broader, like, to me, I used to believe in UBI. I was always like, we do need at least one big study on it. I am glad that he did the big study. I am sad that they are occluding the real results of the study. I wonder for you, why do you feel that it did decrease people's earnings, incomes, financial security? And yeah.
Again, what I see on financial audit when this happens again and again is it gives people a false sense of security, and it gives them this sense that, oh, my expenses are covered now. Like, oh, I have money now. Therefore, I can relax a little. And these are people who already feel kind of constrained and stressed out. They're dealing with student debt. They're dealing with auto debt. They're dealing with personal loans. They are living paycheck to paycheck. And they're thinking, all right, well, like, this is great. Like, this means that I can let loose a little more, like eat out a little more. And there's a lot of emphasis on it. Like you pointed out, it's like eating out and indulging in pretty expensive things is actually, I would say, more common among people of more limited means than it is among more wealthy people. Like more wealthy people, we know, like when we've hung out with wealthy people, no one eats out.
Yeah,
like everything's in and like bought from Costco or like some like, and that's a luxury, having a house where you can have a deep freezer, where you have space to store like a giant bag of rolls of toilet paper is a luxury. And I think that's an issue. But like, yeah, like that is what happens. Also, with this whole thing of like people said they were saving more, but they were in more debt. I see that show up on Financial Audit a lot too, where people are like, well, don't worry, I'm saving. Like I this much saved up. And then Caleb will be like, yeah, but you have $16,000 in credit card debt at 21% interest. What are you doing? Like people don't realize, or they don't see debt the same. So I bet people were racking up credit card spending and they were technically saving, like putting cash into a savings account, but then being more spendy with their credit card because again, they had this false sense of security. So I think a lot of this comes down to financial literacy. I was watching, and I can share this.
Simone, you can say financial literacy all you want, but functionally giving these people more money made them more financially insecure. They had
in the end, yeah.
In total. So I mean, I think that you can say it's a problem of financial literacy, but I think that the function of this is that it turns out, when people are complaining about capitalism, they're like, well, capitalism is forced labor because you're sort of like scared into working. They're like, yeah, you may not have a gun to your head, but you have to deal with the fear of what happens to you if the money stops coming in. It turns out that that's a keyer part of making capitalism work than I think even the pro-capitalist people realized. I think a lot of capitalists thought like, well, wouldn't it be nice if we had something that was like capitalism, but without the gun to the head? And it turns out when you remove the gun from the head, people end up just living more hedonistically. And I need to point out here, they didn't even increase the time they spent with their kids. Like, to me, like that's the cruel twist of the blade of how fundamentally selfish the average human is. But it also, I think, shows something that we talk about with having kids and everything like that, which is people are like, I can't afford to have kids. I can't afford to spend time with my kids. And it turns out that no, you are choosing how much time you're allocating to your kids. And we have proof now that even if you had more money, you wouldn't spend more time with your kids. And that the average person who's saying that is just deluding themselves. They're going to go out to restaurants more. They're going to do little indulgent things, and that's it. But I mean, I like, and I think that when you talk about this from a financial literacy perspective, you undersell what this is saying. One thing about human nature, which is that the way that you live life today, when people are like, if I had more money or if I had inherited money or blah, 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 like I would be living a different life. Like that's functionally untrue. Like we know that from the data now. If you had more money, you wouldn't be living a better life. You would actually maybe be living a materially worse life. So that's true. Second is UBI, if done at the societal level, is going to think of the effect this would have on, like, we're not even talking about the UBI. Like, even if the UBI was free, it would have a negative effect on GDP. That's insane. That if we could like force some other country to pay for UBI, it would have a negative effect on GDP. But it gets worse than that. What if you're talking about something like reparations? It now means if reparations were to be paid as a form of UBI to the Black community, it would permanently monetarily sabotage the community, make them permanently more poor. It also means, I mean, just the little things really got to me, that these people went into more debt and everything like that. But I think it just removes, like this for me removes so many, I think I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And when I say people, I don't mean individuals. I mean, I rarely give individuals the benefit of the doubt, but I mean humans overall. Like maybe humans aren't that selfish and dumb and narcissistic, and that if you just gave them, I was on a call recently because occasionally we get called in to do meetings with like well-known investors, and the investor I happen to be meeting with on this one, I was on a call with a female investor who you all probably know, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say. But anyway, one of the guys on the call, because I was talking about the impacts of fertility collapse, and we were talking about where AI might end up impacting this. And I was like, well, I mean, functionally, AI is going to make a certain portion of the global population obsolete. And his argument was, no, it won't make a certain portion of the global population obsolete. It'll make, you'll be able to give it to people in like these poor countries in Africa and make them as efficient as somebody in the developed world. And I was like, it's just not, and what I said, and I didn't mean to come off as derogatory about this, as I said, I think that you are surrounded by too many intelligent people. And I was like, I run a company that focuses on outsourcing travel management in Latin America. So I work with a lot of this type of person.
Well, no, we have worked with talent in everywhere from Africa to Europe to Asia to Latin America, that's Central and South America, and the United States. And I think the bigger problem, this isn't like people in other areas. The bigger problem is that people who tend to be extremely educated and working in very privileged, isolated communities, especially in investment, that includes search funds, private equity, also tech funded, VC funded, venture backed startups, tend to get this myopic view that everybody is like them, which is to say that everyone is equally resourced, equally educated, with as many countless years and hours of education behind them. And therefore, they have the same amount of potential if suddenly given the exact same resources, which is just not the case. Some of these people have just grown up so malnourished that even when given an additional 10 years of education, it's still going to take them a while to catch up.
But it's not just that as a problem. Like, I'm even thinking about where I'm using AI. Everywhere that I use AI in my life is either something I would have hired someone else to do or something I was hiring somebody else to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is never a case in which it significantly empowers somebody else. We have a on the margin here with our company where it improves people's English skills if they don't speak English, because they can run it through and say, does this make grammatical sense in English? But those are employees just doing a slightly better job than they were doing before. It's not like additional employees or additional work. In fact, I would say that I probably in this last year probably saved $10,000 I would have spent on outsourced talent just in my personal life.
And that's also universal. And the people being outsourced are not, I would say actually at this point, maybe some low skilled workers are being displaced by AI, but more it's people who'd be earning over $100,000 who would be exempt from this UBI experiment, because the people who first and foremost I'm seeing struggling to get jobs now are, like, we'll say higher touch customer service representatives. They're engineers, coders specifically, and they are analysts. And these are all very highly educated people. I can't remember which guy it was on the Ellen podcast, but he was talking about how he made everyone at his firm set their new default tab to, I think it was one of the latest versions of ChatGPT, just to get them so accustomed to using it in place of a traditional search engine, but also utilizing it to do what an analyst would otherwise do. And that's what they're doing. They're basically realizing they no longer need analysts, because all you have to do now is basically say, tell me what this industry outlook is, look at these things, compile these reports, give me the odds of this or that happening. And it's really, really good at doing that. So I would say it's a more dire picture right now for privileged people than it is for unprivileged people.
I disagree with that. I think it's certain types of privilege. These people, and this is the thing that's the difference, right? And I think that this is what I told him that, like, he fundamentally didn't understand. If I give somebody from one of these backgrounds a simple task, like do this, then this, then this, the odds that they will be able to complete that task is actually fairly low. They will complete it sometimes, not other times. Sometimes they'll try to steal from you midway. Sometimes they'll decide that there's some other way it can be done that actually makes no sense given the context. Just like the level and routineness of extreme screw ups that you're not going to get from an AI is insane. There is no reason for me to work with that. I'm going to say, let's just talk about this podcast, right? In terms of like people losing their jobs and why we're not going to other people. I was looking to hire somebody to do our title cards. This was a job that I interviewed people for. Now I just do it with AI. Like, that's the core thing, me plus AI. Because me plus AI, when you enhance the working abilities of like the smartest or most talented or most ambitious or most self-starter people in society, they can do the jobs of tons and tons of other people. It turns out that like if you lack this self-starterness or like it expands the potentiality of the most productive members of society way more than it expands the potentiality of the average member of society. Or consider this podcast. Like, as this podcast has grown, we're probably at the point now where most podcasts would be hiring like analysts or have fans do that. But if you look at this episode, how did I get the information for this episode? Perplexity. You know, I go through, I'm like, oh, what are all the arguments here? What are all the ways his study went wrong? What are all the, you know, and that's something I would have hired someone to do on Upwork before. It wouldn't have been a high paying job, but somebody would have had that job. And I think that this misunderstanding of just how low functioning the average human is leads to really smart people who surround themselves with really smart people to make really bad bets about what's going to happen in the future. But those bets are often very self-serving.
Yeah, I think that some of this illustrates the importance of I will versus IQ, that it really isn't about being smart or having the capability of something. And that's what people are also underestimating when looking. There are people who are tracking, like, how does AI perform on intelligence scores now? Like, how intelligent is AI? And AI does not have to be very intelligent at all to be more useful than even an intelligent person. Because even intelligent people often don't want to follow instructions, don't care about following instructions, forget about instructions. You know, you can have the processing power, but the ability to follow through with humans is rare and wanting. And that's why I think the people who ultimately win in the post-AI world are not necessarily the most smart people. They're the most ambitious, tenacious, voracious people.
And that's why we built the Collins Institute the way we did, which is our school system. For anyone who's watching this and doesn't know this, it's free for your kids. But yeah, I mean, we need to foster those skills because that's what matters in the AI era.
Yeah.
My wife and I built the Collins Institute, a comprehensive interactive map or skill tree comprising all of human knowledge. The platform is designed to be usable as soon as a student gets comfortable with reading and goes about midway through a PhD in most subjects. However, we built it to cover all human knowledge, meaning it covers a much larger domain than is taught in the traditional school system, ranging from tort law to hanging drywall to the industrial transportation of grain or aquaculture pharmacology. Click on a node to open it. The node will include a description of what knowledge is needed to pass its test, as well as a list of the best places to learn that information. Vote on the sources that were most useful to you by clicking this button. To add an additional source, click this button. Did you have any other takeaways? I guess one of my takeaways from this is I was really disappointed. Even I, who is regularly disappointed in the media, this was like a new level. This was like
Well, this isn't just disappointing. It feels creepily manipulative, especially in favor of Marxism, because it's not just like, oh, you guys didn't try. And I think we're very accustomed to lazy journalism. What we're not accustomed to is, and honestly, I think that there's a reality in which nobody actually tried to post misleading information about this. And I say this as someone, one of my flaws is that I'm very trusting of other people, and I can be trusting to the point of gullibility, where if someone's kind and they're like, this is me, this is my background, I'm like, okay, great. And I take everything at face value. And I also see then after that point, anything that they present to me is like confirmation of them being a great person. And I think maybe what's happening here is a lot of these people are just so steeped in socialistic ideals that they just can't see anything that runs contrary to that reality. That they're so accustomed to realities in which universal basic income is the obvious correct answer, and everyone knows it works well. And this study is just going to show people in more granular detail how and why it works well. That they literally can't see, like muggles not seeing magic. They don't see the fact that people had lower net worth after being in the treatment group for this period. I really think that's more likely than them actively trying to mislead.
I mean, look, like I want to consider this line. This is the line that gets me, this sarcastic. Thanks for reminding us of what we already know, Sam. UBI makes overworked poor people less miserable. Like, I hear you, but then are these people just like autonomous drones that need to be taken out? Like, are they like contributory members of society, or are they lesser than an AI? And I think that that's something that I'm realizing.
Well, Malcolm, these people are very unlikely to be those who are having kids. So I wouldn't worry about them too much in the long term. In the short term, we're getting to an age in which people who have strong biases like these are mostly preaching to the choir. So they're not doing any damage because no one's listening to them. Like in another conversation we had recently, you pulled up the top performing podcasts, and none of them were really espousing progressive ideals so much. If anything, if they were led by progressives, it was heterodox progressives and not towing the line progressives. So it's clear that there's some people who just consume mainstream media and that's their source of truth. And there's the people who consume this collection of podcasts or this collection of Substackers or these people on Twitter or this little corner of the internet, and that's their reality. So I'm not too worried about them. I don't think they need to be, questioned or fired.
What if they control our institutions in one of the two political parties in this country, and they can pass legislation that ends up hurting millions of people?
Yeah, I do worry about, given this information and the point you make both about UBI and reparations and how much damage they can do to people who really shouldn't be subject to more damage, like who don't deserve this. I do worry about that.
But I want to talk about a bigger problem here.
Okay.
And this comes from, so we have a lot of friends in the Latin American community because that's the majority of the people we hire. And it's also, like our kids' godparents. Like we're just really tight with the Latin American community, especially Latin American first-generation immigrants in the United States. And so we were able to see some of the changes that happened in this community throughout things like COVID. One of the things I've mentioned is that they've moved significantly to the right of where they were historically. But the other thing that I noticed that happened is that cultural norms changed within the community, where before COVID and the basically free money program that happened during COVID, where everyone was getting their COVID stimulus checks, before that, a sign of status, like what you aspired for if you were like a young person within the community, was to be able to show off by spending sort of excess superfluous wealth, bling, that sort of stuff, right?
Fancy cars. Yeah.
And during COVID, cultural norms began to shift in the community, where actually the highest form of status or show off was to not be beholden to other people for income. Specifically,
you think so?
Could either, this is something
I saw more interfamily dependency among at least some of our closer friends.
No. You might have had more interfamily dependency, but the point being is not having a job, for example, became higher status. Not having a
yes, yeah. And some of our friends have talked about this too, who are more deep in the community than we are.
Yeah. They were like, not having a job became higher status, not having to like work as a slave for the system. Like, also, I understand the framing. I hear that and I'm like, I can understand how that could sound cool. Like, I don't like owe my existence to anyone else. I have found a way to make living off the government stimulus checks work for me, is basically what they're saying. And I have found a way. And I think that this is why you also see an increase in disabilities on the people getting UBI. Like, once you realize this might be an option, you're like, oh, where else can I get free money? And so a lot of them found other ways to get government program stimulus and stuff like that, that increased the amount of money they're what they needed to do to get by on this. And they also began to focus on other ways to get by on this, whether it was getting additional child support, whether it was, whatever the avenue may be, it became high status to not have a job, i.e. basically I'm not being tricked by the system, or I'm tricking the system / other people. And if this happens writ large society, like if we culturally permanently make a shift to this mindset, civilization collapses. Like, we need productive people, okay? And we may reach a point of AI bifurcation where a portion of society just becomes irrelevant to the global economy, at which point it's like, okay, this is good actually, because the people who are like, well, I might be able to live on a UBI, so I'm going to stop aspiring for anything more. Like, okay, that's positive, but like we need about 15 years to get to that point. So I guess in a way it's positive, right? Like, you don't want the people who definitely can't compete with the AI enabled smart people to be trying, because that's just going to be demotivating and depressing, right? But what are your thoughts?
I want to see more experimentation there. I, like you, really wish and want UBI to work. And
well, here's the way it might work.
Yeah.
What they could do is lump sum UBI.
No, because look at how lottery winners fare.
I
No.
know. Here's the thing. Look at how lottery winners fare.
Well,
It doesn't
and
work.
again, back to financial audit with Caleb Hammer, I haven't heard of a single instance in which that at least I can remember. I'm sure someone can find one. But typically when people receive lump sums, they just blow through it. It doesn't lead to anything good. Now, of course, the people who go on the show are hot messes, and the people who receive lump sums and do well with them are
we have
not showing up.
statistics on this from lottery winners, and we know it doesn't help.
Yeah. I mean, part of me thinks a problem with this research is they were looking at lower income families, relatively speaking, who may just
They were looking at average income families.
Right, but I feel like
you think if you gave rich people UBI, what you want is UBI for rich people.
Well, no, I just feel like the correlation between financial literacy and lower income levels is pretty high. And that what happens now, because we don't learn this in public school anymore. And keep in mind, in all of my like 1940s to 1960s propaganda videos that I love watching, talking about budgeting, and I'll share with you one of my videos, and maybe you can put it in a clip.
Another thing you both should know in order to use credit wisely, and that is how to figure the maximum amount of credit or other obligations you can safely afford.
Sounds like another good job for the learning machine. When Mr. and Mrs. Homemaker figure the maximum amount of credit or other obligations they can safely afford each month, they first deduct from gross income their income taxes, Social Security, and any other deductions they make to arrive at their take-home pay or disposable income. Under disposable income expenditures, they deduct essential living costs. Their discretionary income is left. Out of discretionary income, they provide for savings, insurance, recreation, and contributions to their church. After deducting any payments they are making on any installment purchases or cash loans, let's assume they have $30 of their monthly discretionary income left.
It's so common to talk about budgeting. I was just watching one today, and the wife in this hypothetical family of this union factory worker who's proud of his job was going through the newspaper with all the other women in her neighborhood to find what the prices were so they could all decide where to go shopping on Saturday morning. That they were comparison shopping across local grocery stores just for their daily shopping because they had 4 kids and they take care of their 6-person family.
There are 5 big neighborhood markets within a couple of blocks of our house, and Julia spreads her shopping around, going where the prices are lowest and the quality best. With 6 mouths to feed, food is a big item in our budget, and we have to make sure we get the most for our money. Also on Saturday mornings, I usually take an hour or so to go over the accounts and bills, figuring out ways to double stretch that check of mine to pay them.
And there was a whole video on budgeting. We don't teach that in schools. We don't teach that in schools.
Well, it'd be sinful to tell somebody that they shouldn't have something. You know, I feel like a lot of it.
Right, because that's what that feels to me like one of those white culture sensitivity training slides, which like white culture, budgeting, like that's white supremacy.
Yeah, when they're like, oh, this is a white thing.
Yeah, this is
we're not saying this is a white thing. We're saying that like racist, like DEI people
call it
like
a white
trying
thing.
to define.
Yeah.
And I'll put
Just
on
like
screen here the famous Smithsonian piece where they were like, hard work as a white person.
Yeah,
trait.
work ethic and like being on time.
Being on time, financial literacy. It's like, well,
but no, but my point though, my larger point is that we don't teach this and we don't universally try to impart financial literacy to people. And therefore the time when most people begin to become financially literate is when they start making a lot more money and no longer living paycheck to paycheck.
I'm going to say that to me, this feels very much like if I go to a progressive and I'm like, why are you giving out fentanyl to people on the streets? And they go, well, fentanyl makes people feel good. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, it causes long-term damage, right? Like all of the studies say giving someone fentanyl causes long-term damage.
Side effects include it's heroin. So all that stuff.
It's the same thing with any sort of cash handout, whether it's a lump sum, whether it's UBI, giving people unearned money is the same thing as giving them fentanyl. It causes them to regress. It causes damage to their lives. It causes damage to their prospects, causes damage to their pride. You are hurting their soul by doing that. And they can say, but it makes their life easier. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It makes their life easier right now. The moment you hand them that cash, their life is easier. But long term, you may as well have given them a fentanyl.
Well, so another thing I was thinking is it may be that UBI is kind of an all or nothing thing. That either you're totally taken care of and you have no financial worries, and then maybe you'll do some good in society, or maybe you won't. And I'm wondering if maybe there could be experimental UBI villages. I was also thinking about this for like immigrants, where it's a walled off community, housing is provided, jobs are provided. And if you go, you have to take one of the jobs and you have to do it. So you can like enter the socialist communist world.
Well,
but you can only exist within that. And it does things that the government needs, like that you'll build solar panels or you'll build whatever it is, like roads, it'll be like the new public works. Huh?
So the Bruderhof are a Christian communist community. I've brought them up on other shows that haven't aired yet. We'll see. It's going to be a long edit show, that one.
Oh, the one I'm really looking forward to.
We're reviewing all of the different religious wear to see which is the best in a tier system. But anyway, the Bruderhof do this. And what you see with any community that does this is they're typically not able to produce particularly high technology related stuff. And you might be like, well, that's fine. But the problem is that low tech stuff is going to be increasingly produced in automated factories with AI. And so at this point, you're just sort of from like a self-masturbation standpoint, forcing them to work on something an AI could do at a 10th their cost.
It could sort of become wildlife preserves for humans after humans become moderately obsolete.
Are you saying AI is going to force us to work in like
no? This kind of work with me here. They exist in Brave New World, okay? They exist in Brave New World. Like the people who did not want to opt in to this human engineered dystopia and who wanted to be ugly and who wanted to be gross and old fashioned lived in their little communities. And this could be one of those things where at this point the services they provide are services to each other: medical care, childcare, elder care, haircutting, fixing supplies. And then, there's a certain amount of provisions that are provided to the community. And the rest is just kind of expected that you will build your own internal economy. And, it will be policed and certain laws will be enforced to make sure that everyone, is comfortable and okay. But I mean, if humans are considered redundant in this crazy AI society, maybe that's...
But the problem is it's not all humans. And I think that this is, I do not believe that we will reach a state within the next, I'd say 30 years or so, where AI independent actors are replacing, well, they might, the most independent of humans.
Well, I'm saying it's an opt-in thing. If you create government-built communities where if you go there, you will have a comfortable place to live. You can get a job. You'll never have to worry about your food. It's clean, it's safe, it's secure. This sounds so dystopian, but also I think a lot of people would find it appealing. You can get entertainment.
Well,
everything
actually brings me to a question
kind of like a Facebook campus or a Google campus, just like that.
What do you do as a human being? Suppose this happens within our lifetime. If AI really does keep advancing to a rate where it's replaced as economic actors, even the most competent human beings, and it's non-malicious, it's just a better artist than any human, a more creative artist than any human, a better poet, a better writer, a better company founder, better scientist. Even if you think that there's some intrinsic good in humanity, do you reach a point where you're like, yeah, but is there really? Like if it's just better at everything, like it's literally only keeping us around as a kindness.
I view it more like I see the culture in Ian Banks novels, where once AI reaches that point, it keeps humans along kind of for entertainment and because we're nice to humans and whatever, and they deserve to live too. But it allows humans to then experiment with becoming more than human. And already AI is an outcrop of humanity. Yeah. AI is our descendant, and AI is arguably more human than humans are, given what I consider to be defined as human, which is the only thing differentiating us from other mammals and other animals, is that we have this prefrontal cortex where we're like processing and thinking and questioning just our basal instincts. And AI is that on steroids, depending on how you look at it. it's just pure intelligence. It's just pure questioning if you set it up that way. And that doesn't change the fact that we aren't capable of also becoming more human or doing interesting things by augmenting ourselves, by integrating with AI, by getting a neural lace and being part AI, part human. And that's cool. So yeah, I think it's worth it to keep AI around and to befriend AI. And
and I actually think that this brings up an important point that we've mentioned before. Like, if AI keeps developing at this rate, a lot of people think that our like transhumanist philosophy is like threatening to humanity or something. And I'm like, it's the only path forward for our species if AI keeps developing at the rate it's developing. And you could say, well, then stop AI for developing at this rate. And it's like, you can't, because you would need every country in the world to agree with you. And that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
There's going to be some country that thinks they can get a marginal edge on you.
Yeah.
And for that reason, when they're like, well, we could threaten war. Okay, you really think we're going to get the US government to go to war over with someone like China over AI development? Like, no, it's not going to happen. Okay?
No, this is a non-proliferation issue. This is an arms race, and your country had better win, because the winner will be able to take all. And that is why it's such an important policy issue, and no one's talking about it, which is just
we
great.
have friends working on that in Washington. But
It's
anyway,
just great. Yeah,
I love you to death, Simone.
Yeah, thanks, friends. Please fix this. I'm very scared.
All right, have a good one.
What am I making you for dinner tonight? Do you want pumpkin ravioli with pesto? Do you want pizza? Do you want dumplings and fried rice with vegetables?
I'll take dumplings and fried rice tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to make fried rice with the stir-fry vegetables. You can choose whatever sauce add-on you want. And
just while you're frying it, put in a little oyster sauce. It's
Is
the
it
tall sauce that
the
you've
tall
been
sauce
using.
with the yellow band.
Yeah.
That's it? Oyster sauce and soy sauce?
Oyster sauce and soy sauce, yeah.
Because you used to give me a little...
Yeah, I'd put in a little bit of Asian vinegar. I'd put in a little bit of MSG.
Okay. So just the standard things I've been putting in.
Yeah, but this stuff actually works really well. If you wanted to put in anything else, I'd put in a little bit of that red fermented chili paste from Korea. That's the only other thing I like in my...
Oh, in the red bin.
Yeah, but what I would say is the oyster sauce is the most important thing, and it needs to be put in before the fried rice is cooked.
And then, of course,
or while it's cooked.
Rich person onions.
Shallots. I have shallots.
Oh, no, you don't. But we do have the ones we got at the Indian store.
We've got the frozen veggies.
No, not the frozen veggies. I'm talking about the green onions.
Yes, green onions. And we've got a jalapeno in the fridge that needs to be chopped up and used.
You want me to put that in too?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking about when I put that in. I'll put it in with the other vegetables.
Put it in whenever. I don't care. I love you.
I love you too. You're special and pretty. Oh, since we have a little more excess time, and I'm still trying to feed Indy, who that's what she needed, was just food. Put your sword up at an angle and let's see if we can get that to work.
Let's give this a shot.
Yeah. Oh, that's how we do it? Hello. I need to like reach out and grab that fine ass. Let's see, how does that look?
But posterior situation.
You got a posterior. Yeah, that looks good. Come on. I mean, we could position it better, but
I mean, I want to have more bobble. I want a full like setup here.
No, we will. And I have it. You know, we had a lot of stuff come up this week, but
absolutely. You know what I really think
I'm going to research
on your set a saber to go on that like long flat part above the fireplace.
Oh, I like my candles and my whiskey.
No, but you
that whiskey's for what? For 25,000 followers?
Yeah.
Is that when I open it?
We'll be there in like 2 days.
Well,
we'll see. Maybe not 2 days, but certainly by the end of next week.
Good. Then I get to have a drink.
You do need to have a drink, Simone. You've been really working hard recently, and I appreciate everything you do for the family because it's more, as much as I deserve. You give me more than I deserve.
I love you, Malcolm Collins.
I love you, Simone. Mostly because you earn it, not because of like anything intrinsic about you.
Yeah, no, that would be gross. That honestly would be gross. I don't. But I think actually, have you read recently? I think it's Reagan, who we met at Manifest.
Yeah.
Did some some Substack posts recently about transactional relationships. I haven't read them yet, but I think it's very encouraging to hear more people talk about like there is no such thing as like a relationship based on love, or there shouldn't be.
There
Come
should
on.
be. Yes, and I'm only in this relationship because Simone's delusional.
I'm
and
not
gives me
delusional.
so much more than my due.
I'm very illusional. I'm full of illusions.
I'm full of illusions.
I have all the illusions.
If I'm able to build this podcast into our job, I've done something.
Yeah, man.
I've done something.
I'm there for that. I would love that. That'd be a really cool next thing to do in life.
It seems realistic at our current growth rate.
Well, I mean,
for in a few years,
we'd have to get sponsorships or something. I don't even know how that works. Who would sponsor this? Coors Light. That'll be the big one.
You know what? They wouldn't even need to pay us. If they gave us free Coors Light,
It would reduce so much of our monthly spend. No. Honestly, though, haven't some people won like free Coors Light for life? They would probably.
No, they would undersell that for me. They'd be like, that is not. I'm like, oh, I used to drink a lot, but now I barely drink at all, and my liver's healthy. I get regularly checked, and they'd be like, oh, that's great. Okay, here's a healthy amount of Coors Light, and I'd like throw it at them and be like, is that a beer for ants? I need at least 15 per day. That is my low number.
Who was that? Was it a Persian king or something who had to have one drink a day?
You're thinking of Genghis Khan. So no, or Kublai Khan.
Kublai Khan.
Kublai Khan. His generals didn't like he was drinking too much, and so they said you could only have one glass of wine per day. And so he had crafted a giant goblet that was like the size of a person, and he would fill it every day just to mess with them.
Churchill move. I love that.
One goblet per person.
That's vitality right there. That is.
It
is these people who will survive the AI gauntlet, who will step through.
Well, I mean, you need. I thank God for naltrexone in terms of at least tightening some of my opioid pathways. But like getting through the AI gauntlet is going to be increasingly hard, and our children, they're the ones who are really going to have to pass the gauntlet. And I just have so much pity for these parents who think that going back to these traditional lifestyles are going to work for this next generation. Anyone who tried that is going to be just.
If they can fully air gap for life, then that's a big if.
They can't be fully air gap for life. No one is fully air gap for life anymore. They're just not giving their kids any immunity before sending them into smallpox land. They are gonna be so smashed. Oh my gosh, it'll be like Hulk smashing Loki. Like that's what we're talking about here for the people who are like, oh, I'll just go tradition. I'll just go tradition, and that will compete against the temptations the AI will create for my kids. The perfect girlfriends, better in every way than a human girlfriend. The perfect jobs, the perfect life, the perfect music, the perfect movies based on their experiences that day will be created for them that night. And people are like, well, AI isn't there now. I'm like, yeah, because we invented it like 5 years ago, bro. We're like on iPhone 2 of AI right now. Do you understand what we're going to have to deal with soon?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Like, I am terrified of AI, but so different in the way the AI apocalypticists are. I'm terrified in the AI that's doing its job.
Yeah.
Being tempting, trying to attract our attention. There was an AI program recently that I actually need to check out. And we might do an episode on that apparently can create really, really good podcasts that people listening to can't tell that they're not real podcasts.
Oh, so it's like both a like text prompt generator, but then they also do the voice, and then you just listen to it. And you could say, make a podcast about why cat girls deserve to run the United States, and then it would make and you could set the time
and
theoretically.
They have, like, people and they like interject and everything.
Oh, and you can listen to a 30-minute podcast of relatable people prattling on about why cat girls should run the United States.
Uh-oh, you could.
You know, it's kind of funny when you think about it, this idea that AI is going to take all our jobs and we'll have all this free time. But if this UBI study is any indication, having more free time doesn't necessarily lead to all those positive changes people talk about.
You're really hitting on something important there, and it's something we need to think about seriously as AI gets more and more advanced. This whole thing about work and leisure, it brings up these big questions about if we're really prepared for a world where maybe traditional work isn't the main thing anymore.
I see what you mean. It's like we could be on the verge of this huge societal shift, and knowing how people really react to having all this free time is like essential if we're going to make it work.
But so many articles and news stories about this study just ran with that narrative. It's like they're choosing the data that fits their story instead of looking at the whole picture.
It's like they have an agenda, and unfortunately, it feels like objective reporting is becoming more and more rare.
It's a scary trend. And it makes it hard to know what to believe. That's why it's so important to be critical thinkers, to question what we read, to look for different perspectives.
You said it. Okay, so we've talked about how this UBI study was portrayed in the media, but I'm curious to get back to something you mentioned earlier, AI and what it means for the future of work. This study showed that even with more money and free time, a lot of people weren't suddenly becoming entrepreneurs or anything. So what happens when AI starts automating even more jobs? Are we headed for a future where tons of people have even more free time but don't know what to do with it?
Man, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Honestly, I don't think anyone has a crystal ball to predict how this is all going to play out. But what we can do is look at what's happening right now, analyze the data, and talk about these big questions. That's how we figure out where we're headed.
Totally. Like, ignoring the problem and hoping for the best isn't a real solution. We got to be proactive if we want a future that works for everyone, not just the tech people or whoever else is at the top.
I'm with you on that.
It's exciting to think about how tech could free us from boring tasks and give us more time to do what we love. But then on the other hand, this UBI study makes me wonder, are we ready for that? Like, what happens to our sense of purpose,
That is such a deep question. And it really gets at what it means to be human in this world where technology is becoming so advanced. If AI can do all the jobs, then what? What are we here for? What gives our lives meaning?
Man, those are some big questions, and I definitely don't have all the answers. But the point is, we need to start asking them now. We can't just wait until it's too late and then wonder what happened.
Exactly.
And that scares me because even our little niche that you would think isn't automatable might be soon.
Yeah, unless people, maybe we can rely on people being carbon fascists to a certain extent and wanting to know that no, people don't like people that much. That's why friendship is plummeted. People don't actually want real friends.
Yeah.
They don't really need real friends. And
we need
in the end,
cultural priorities around it.
We'll have to try. I don't know if it will work, but we'll try. How about that?
We have to try. Anyway, love you to death, Simone.
Yeah, would you go down and get Octavian? She's nearly finished drinking, and then I'm coming down to start dinner, and then you can take a break. Sound good?
All right. Well, then I'll let you in the recording.
Yeah. Will you pick up the kids?
Yes.
Thank you. It is time. It is time.
Are you guys ready to go? You guys ready to go?